The Force Wars on Tython was a series of conflicts that took place, well, obviously on Tython, that began more than 7 centuries before the formation of the Galactic Republic. It was considered the first conflicts between the followers of the light and dark side of the Force. The Force Wars initially began as an invasion by the forces of the Rakata Empire, and the Jedi Order at that time had joined up together and fought against the Infinite Empire, but after the Infinite Empire had to scramble back because they were struggling with their own government and there were revolutions across the galaxy against them. The Jedi Order at that point had fallen apart into rival groups between the modern day Jedi and Sith factions, also known as the followers of Asha and the followers of Borgin, or as I like to say it, the Battle of the Force, as I like to call it. It began from 25,793 BBY to 25,783 BBY, and both sides utilized metal augmented swords through the using the Force, which for some reason changes the color of the blade. Which I don't know. Like I never got that, but like they used augmented swords, metal swords to fight, and these were followers who had initially big different ideologies going on, so it became a 10-year conflict in order to utilize which faction takes over Tython, which faction becomes the dominant force, and ultimately the followers of Borgin fell apart, and they were exiled, and they would later become the modern Sith Lords, and it would establish the old Jedi Order that we would come to know in the prequel trilogy, and so forth. Um, Overall, this conflict is never explored in the expanding universe as much as it should have been. Like they talk about it at times, but overall, it's just like, oh, this conflict happened. This is on the background. This is in the background pretty much. But it is a pretty important conflict since it would start the Jedi Order and the Sith Order, the whole blind division that there is two sides to the Force, not just one entity that has both sides in it, as the positives and the negative emotions that influence it. Here's my ultimate theory about this whole conflict: that the followers of Bogan, had this. Like they thought the Force should be fueled by negative emotions such as hate, anger, despair, suffering, and fuel their strength, whereas the followers of Asha believed in compassionate emotions such as compassion, obviously, love, and generosity, and all that kind of positivity. And it would later devolve into the light side and dark side of the Force, which honestly is kind of stupid to me. But that's ultimately my opinion. But this was my interesting theory, my interpretation of what the Fall of Borgin and the Fall of Asha was. Um, but ultimately, this conflict would kind of not really be explored much by the writers. Like it was mentioned, like it only been mentioned. They never really talk about it. Like they don't show the conflict happening. Like they show history of the Jedi Order before the Jedi Order happened, when it was a merge group. The Jedi Order, as I like to pronounce it as, it was called. So really, not much is really explained about this. It's just mentioned and talked about. It's not really shown. So that's pretty much it. This was Neo Reality Entertainment. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and donate, and stay tuned for more.